Have you ever noticed that in the very first Diary of a Wimpy Kid book, Greg Heffley spends almost the entire year trying to become popular? Whether it's using his best friend, joining clubs, impressing older kids, or avoiding social embarrassment, Greg is constantly looking for a shortcut to the top of the middle school food chain. The problem is that almost every single attempt ends in complete failure. So today, we're looking at every time Greg tried to be popular in Book 1. Right from the start, Greg already thinks he deserves to be popular. In fact, he says this diary is basically being written for when he's rich and famous in the future. Greg doesn't see himself as an average middle schooler at all. He sees himself as someone who's destined for greatness. Unfortunately for him, the rest of the school doesn't exactly agree. One of Greg's first popularity strategies involves Rollie Jefferson. Greg clearly thinks he's cooler than Rollie and believes hanging around him will make Greg look better by comparison. Instead, the exact opposite happens. Rollie's friendly personality starts winning people over, and before long, he's becoming more popular than Greg, rather than helping Greg climb the social ladder. Rollie accidentally climbs it himself. Next, Greg tries to gain attention through his cartoons. He dreams of becoming famous and wants people to recognize his talent. But whenever Greg's cartoon ambitions start building momentum, they never quite work out the way he imagined. Instead of becoming a school celebrity, he mostly ends up disappointed. Then comes Halloween. Greg and Rollie decide to go trick-or-treating. But Greg also wants to look cool around some older teenagers. This plan goes horribly wrong when the boys get chased through the neighborhood. Instead of earning respect, Greg spends the night running for his life. As the school year continues, Greg becomes obsessed with his social status. He's constantly comparing himself to other students and worrying about who's popular and who isn't, rather than focusing on school or having fun. Greg spends a surprising amount of time thinking about where he ranks. Greg also tries sports. When wrestling season arrives, Greg hopes it might be a chance to improve his reputation. Unfortunately, wrestling doesn't turn him into a respected athlete. Instead, it becomes another chapter in Greg's long history of embarrassing moments. But perhaps Greg's biggest attempt at popularity comes when he joins the safety patrol. Finally, Greg has a badge, responsibility, and a position that sounds important. For a while, this actually looks like it might work. Greg has something that could genuinely make him stand out. Then comes the infamous worm incident. After being blamed for something he didn't really do, Greg loses his place on the safety patrol and watches yet another opportunity disappear. Throughout the entire book, Greg is also terrified of getting the cheese touch. The cheese touch is basically a social death sentence at his school, and Greg spends months trying to avoid it. His fear of becoming unpopular is so strong that he changes how he acts just to protect his reputation. Ironically, Greg's most respectable moment comes when he sacrifices his own reputation for Rollie. When Rollie is about to take the blame, Greg steps in and accepts the cheese touch himself. It's one of the few times in the entire book where Greg puts someone else before his own popularity. And that's what makes Greg's story in Book 1 so funny. Every time he thinks he's found a shortcut to popularity, something goes wrong. Impressing older kids, joining wrestling, earning a safety patrol badge, or protecting his reputation from the cheese touch, Greg always finds himself right back where he started. By the end of the book, Greg isn't popular, famous, or respected. If anything, he's had one disaster after another. But despite all of his failures, Greg never gives up. He still believes that one day he'll be at the very top of the social ladder. And if you've read the rest of the series, you'll know that Greg Heffley's quest for popularity is only just beginning. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, let me know which book I should cover next. Should we look at every time Greg tried to be popular in Roderick Rules? Or maybe every time one of Greg's plans completely backfired? Either way, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.